Hello, everyone. Before I introduce myself, while I'm doing that, please grab something that you can doodle on and doodle with. I promise the doodling will be easy and fun and perhaps a little illuminating. I want to give you a little experience with that. So I am Karen Light. I'm a professional artist illustrator with two businesses. At Studio Light Illustration, I work with self-publishing authors and illustrate mostly children's books. And at How Doodle, I'm a creative executive function coach, helping creatives and creative teams get their stuff together so they can create more. So this visibility thing is something I think about a lot as both a business owner and as a creative. And I want to talk to you today about showing up messy as a practice that can increase positive visibility. And I want to start with a story. So for many, many years, decades actually, I worked as a teaching artist and an art teacher in schools where there's a dress code, right? Well, I eventually learned to ignore those dress codes. At the beginning of my teaching career, I tried to follow them. I wanted to look professional, right? Didn't want to break the rules or draw any unwanted attention to myself. But it really wasn't very practical being an art teacher. And in fact, it would really piss me off when my clothes got ruined because I never wanted to buy them in the first place. I just bought them for the job, right? So it was money wasted on many fronts. And as a young artist and teacher, there wasn't a lot of money to waste. So just really, really started irking me. And bit by bit, I started giving up this exhausting game of being professional. Now, the fear voice was really loud when I started wearing clothes that had like paint on them. I wore some for you guys today. I don't know if you can see it in Zoom very easily. Or when I wore my colored jeans instead of professional pants, right? But I kept practicing showing up messy, and that voice would get quieter and quieter. Now, just as I feared, I did draw more attention to myself, but unlike what my fear told me, it wasn't negative attention. In fact, it was mostly positive. I became more visible in the way that I wanted to be seen. The way I wanted to be seen was a little messier, and so it felt more like me. I was less self-conscious. People were actually prompted by the paint to say, hey, what projects are you working on, right? And in fact, my supervisors didn't even care because I was just fully in with my students, and they loved what I was doing with them. I didn't have to worry about silly clothes. So that's who I am. I'm somebody who makes messes, right? In particular, I really like big, colorful messes. I'm not just a digital illustrator. I have mixed media work going on like crazy over here. And I really like inviting people into the messiness with me. So that's how I show up. If I'm being authentic, then it should reflect that, right? And that's what makes people want to work with me in that way for those reasons. If I were to show up in completely pristine clothes, really well put together, some people might be a little skeptical. Consciously or unconsciously, they're going to feel this dissonance between what I say and how I'm showing up, right? Because fundamentally, we're very sensitive creatures. We feel these disconnects, whether aware of it or not. We're rooting out inauthenticity, and we tend to walk away from situations where it just doesn't feel right, right? Where that's not lining up. We might have more surface excuses of like, I don't have time or energy for this. But in fact, maybe there's a bigger underlying reason, which could be that we're just not trusting the person to do what they say they're going to do because they didn't show up in a way that builds that trust. Now, why we hide this mess when it can be such a connective asset is a longer conversation, another one. But for now, I want to give a few examples of what it might look like to hide the mess of a creative project, because sometimes it isn't even obvious that we're doing it. So here are a few ways that I've done it, that I notice some clients do it as well. Number one, not talking about our projects until we are sure they will work out. Two, trying to get all the answers as to how it's going to work out all the way through. And if we can't get it, we stop ourselves from starting. Three, we tell people things are going fabulously, when in fact, you're a confused, frustrated mess who could use a little support and a listening ear. Four, Getting creatively blocked in the middle of trying to achieve something because you're viewing the mess as a failure. 5, making sure our hair and our makeup and background are just perfect before we snap a photo or post a video, right? Okay, so those are ways that it shows up in my life. Maybe you have other ways too, but here's where the doodling comes in. I'm going to invite you to get a little messy and colorful with me in this moment, or use whatever you got. It doesn't matter. It could be on the back of a scrap piece of paper. I want you to spend the next 20 to 30 seconds doodling the most perfect star you have ever doodled. So 30 seconds starting now. Really try to get all the angles the same, measurement, whatever, however you measure it, degrees, that's the word I'm looking for. Try to get the same length on all the sides. Make it as perfect as you can. If you notice something that's not right, go ahead and fix it. Really look at it. Notice anything that's wrong and try to fix it now. All right, just a few more seconds. So curious in the chat, if you want to put a few, I give up. Jacqueline's already ahead of me. How are you feeling trying to do that? Put some feeling words into this. What's going on out there? I hate it. Yes. Mission impossible. Angry, frustrated, swanky. Yeah, tight. Oh, yes, tight. Exactly. It's not a whole lot of fun. Did not like it. You know, I told you, like, I was going to have fun with you with the doodling, and I lied, right? It wasn't that much fun. So what I want you to do now is look at that star and pick one of the imperfections to focus on for a second. If you're like me, you have several, right? Nobody probably got this perfect, but pick one to focus on for a second. But I want you to bring a little curiosity into it now. I want you to take it one step further and doodle on that imperfection in such a way that you amplify it. Like, just let yourself go for the next 30 seconds. Have fun amplifying that imperfection. Blow it up. And while you're doing that, I'm going to give you a few questions to ponder. What if that imperfection says something uniquely interesting about you? How might that imperfection be something that attracts others to you instead of detracting them as your fear wants you to believe? How might that imperfection make that star a much more authentic representation of you than any perfect star could ever be? So this part of the process is usually a little bit more fun for folks, and I hope it was for you too. If you keep practicing, it can be downright freeing and fun, right? It's a relief to be just what we are, which is messy and in process. Then we can find the magic in the mess and give others permission to be their messy, magical selves too. I recently heard someone wisely say, your message is in the mess. And I loved it. Your message is in the mess. In other words, if we're in a service-based business, we tend to want to help people with things that we've struggled with. Doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. It means you just have spent time there and you learn things that might help. But if you are walking that path and you speak to that struggle, you see them, and you're seeing them is what makes them see you. So to that, I'm going to give you 4 ways to build a messy practice that can help you show up messy and increasingly grander and meaningful ways so they can see you. Start with whatever feels good or use them as a jumping off point. 1, notice a messy spot in your house. As long as it isn't attracting bugs or causing danger, right? See if you can just leave it for a while and notice your thoughts and feelings about it. If you're somebody who feels bad about that, see if you can just get to neutral. If you feel neutral, see if you can actually embrace it or even appreciate it. 2, find a fun way to make a mess, like actually on purpose. Start a food fight with your kids. Roll around in some mud, right? Find some house paint and splatter it on some paper in the garage. Like, make a mess on purpose. Again, notice your thoughts and feelings. See if you can work to them to actually enjoy the process. Notice what comes up for you there. 3, post imperfectly on social media if you post. Don't worry too much about all this stuff. One of my most popular reels was me right after a workshop or a workout, bad lighting, big fat period pimple right here on my face. Okay. People loved it. It was great. I was being real. 4, think of an aspect. Oh, that's my time. But think of an aspect in your business that you haven't figured out, but you learned something about it, right? So I help people complete creative projects, but I have a lot of unfinished stuff. What would it look like to talk about that with your clients, or maybe even build a program or write a blog? So gradually, with practices like these, you can build a new relationship with the messy parts of yourself. And there's nothing more attractive than somebody who can show up and her whole self, messes and all. So you can get my free Awaken guide. I'll put the stuff in the chat and the show notes to help you build a messy practice or any creative goal that you got. Thank you so much.